The leadership exhibited by the coach can significantly impact on youth's motivation and enjoyment in sports. Having said that, we agree and want to share with you that research in coaching leadership has the potential to diagnose coaching problems, evaluate and improve the coaching process, and lead to performance enhancement. Coaching behavior. That is the proposed research topic. And this is the presentation from Miguel Gutierrez and Luis Silva for the class Reading, Writing, and Applying Research for Sport Coaches at Ohio University. Many studies have attempted to identify effective coaching behaviors exhibited by coaches. The first studies on this topic, observing the coach behavior, were conducted in the mid-70s. Beginning in the 80s, more and more importance is given to descriptive data of observations made in natural sport settings. Here, I'm going to comment on existing literature from different years, from different countries, from general to soccer specific. There is plenty of information in this topic and still a huge opportunity. On the first paper, what a coach can teach a teacher. Here, by scientific analysis, two researchers found that Coach Wooden's precise and intense methods may be more effective than what the authors call the clumsy tricks of standard pedagogy. Coach Wooden, the greatest coach of the history of basketball, if not in all college athletics, took all kinds of players and year after year taught them to be champions. On the second paper, a system for the behavioral assessment of athletic coaches, existing data indicate that sport participation has neither a universally positive nor a uniformly negative effect. Rather, the effect varies as a function of the way in which programs are structured, the kind of supervision that exists, and the personal characteristics of the child. In this paper, they explain the development and application of the behavioral assessment system within the sport psychology discipline. The coach behavior assessment system was developed to permit the measurement of one factor presumably important in sport: coaching behavior. This system consists of 12 behavioral categories included in two major classes of behavior: reactive behaviors and spontaneous behaviors. On the next paper, Dimensions of Leadership Behavior in Sports, this paper states that the relevance of leadership theory to sports become promptly apparent when sport teams are viewed in a formal organization context. If sport teams are viewed as formal organizations, then the coach role may be equated to that of management, with many and varied managerial functions of the coach, including planning, organizing, budgeting, scheduling, recruiting, public relations, leadership. In this paper, the authors work on the development and refinement of the leadership scale for sports, a 5-factor solution with 4 items describing the most important dimensions of coaching behavior. On the next paper, the purpose of the following study, developed in 2009, was to examine the relation between perceptions of coaching behaviors, psychological needs, achievement goals, and motivational indicators at an intra-individual level. The authors work with high school basketball players from a school in Singapore. They use the leadership scale for sport that we just mentioned in the previous reference to measure the coaching behavior and leadership exhibited by the coaches. On the next paper, Effects of a Mastery Intervention Program on the Motivational Climate and Achievement Goals in Sport Coaching, a multi-method approach was used in the examination of the link between coaching behaviors and athlete psychological responses. This study shows that a target means task, authority, recognition, grouping, evaluation, and time structures. So this study shows that a target intervention with coaches can influence their coaching behaviors to be more mastery involving and significantly increase athletes' perception of a mastery climate and task goal orientations. Some of the limitations of this study are the small sample size and the lack of a control group to compare the findings against. If we move to soccer-specific research, the first paper, Coach Behaviors and Practice Structures in Youth Soccer. In this paper, the authors present empirical evidence to document what coaches do, both in terms of their instructional behaviors and the manner in which they structure activities during practice in youth soccer. So they basically work on three areas: which coach behaviors are used, what research says coaches should do at practice and instruction, and finally, they explain the theory-practice gap. On the next paper, the coaching behavior for scale for sports. This is another study developed at Singapore. Here, the authors agree that capturing the quality of the coach's work is the key to the ongoing professional development of coaches. And they expose some very interesting comments about different frameworks, model, instruments, and methodologies. They mention the mediational model of coaching behaviors, the multidimensional model of coach leadership, the model of coaching effectiveness, the coaching model, coach behavior assessment system, coach analysis and intervention system, leadership scale for sport. To add more to the more tools to this list, they mention other instruments such as the coaching evaluation questionnaire, the coaching behavior questionnaire. However, they finally work with coaching behavior scale for sports that captures multidimensional aspects of coaches' work that can be measured, discrete behaviors. This instrument measures 7 dimensions of a coach's consistent involvement with the athlete in the complex training and competition coaching environments. The last paper, Coaches' Emotional Intelligence and Reactive Behaviors in Soccer Matches. This paper has been published a few months ago in Portugal. The authors argue that in the last 10 years, emotional intelligence has become a current issue of research in psychology, and there are indicators to consider that emotional intelligence should be analyzed to help the coach to behave effectively during competitions. Very interesting paper. In any sport, the coach interacts with his players throughout the matches and training. In such interactions, the behaviors of one person influence the other. As a consequence, coach behavior have a direct impact on the performance, motivation, and attitudes of their players. These interactions are especially important during sport initiation, and that makes this type of studies completely relevant. We'll start this session stating that the leadership exhibited by the coach can significantly impact on the youth's motivation and enjoyment in sports. And there is a lot of information that supports this topic, and certainly our research adds rich content to this research line. So we are very interested in coach behavior topic because of the impact to athletes. That is the root of our objective. However, we should be able to link our findings and conclusions to 3 main transformational aspects that provoke a deep reflection in coaches' community in order to reinforce the message and provoke a call to action. Increase coaching value, chief experience coach, success that lasts. Let me say this for you. The concepts and ideas of coaching behaviors are not brand new. They have been there for a long time. Yes, social dynamics have evolved tremendously. However, Basic human aspirations seems to be prevalent. Individuals aspire to ensure harmony and integration among four levels: individual, family, society, and nature. This is the innate need for every human being, regardless of age, gender, caste, creed, nation, and beliefs. So, then what happens? Well, we believe we live fast and lost sight of the mid and long term because of the short term. But first things first, you have to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. Or you can harm yourself and others in the way. You have to know how to behave at least correctly. But imagine if coaches are able to understand and live the long term in every action they perform, so their behavior are not only correct, but inspiring and empowering athletes and teams to achieve more by bringing out, not only physically, but from their soul and their mind, the greatest strength of every athlete. Increase coaching value. Not only the results matter, but the quality to achieve the result. There are many things in there. Chief Experience Coach. Life is an experience. Build best life experiences possible. Success that lasts. It's not just about happiness and achievement. It's also about significance and legacy, and live about it. And here is our research question. Positive coaching versus negative coaching. Coaching behaviors and its impact on athletes.
Our research, our stand on these research is, how is a coaching behavior affecting athletes? And we're looking at if coaching behaviors, the way they instruct, do they affect the athlete? And some of the research out there that I've read and that we read states that coaches who are more aggressive towards their athlete, the athletes tend to have a bad experience leaving to drop out and being unsatisfied. And so, what we're trying to figure out is how can we as coaches do a better job to not have those athletes drop out of the sport, and how can coaches have better behavior towards athletes? You know, for example, positive affirmation and catching the players when they are good and not always necessarily yelling when a player does a mistake. We want them to know that there are ways that coaches can coach a certain way, though players can have a fun and successful experience in their desired sport. So, how are we going to collect our data? We're going to collect our data using the leadership scale for sports. The way we're going to do this is by sending a email to the players, to the coaches, and they will fill out the survey. And though in that survey, they will have specific questions in regards to the coach and the coach behavior. So, for example, how does the athlete care about when the coach yells at them, or does the athlete perform at their best when the coach yells at them or when they say positive things about them or about the team? So we will use that leadership skill for sports, which is the LSS, and we'll use that to defer the coaching behaviors that is happening in players' teams. So we can also look at the coaches' demographics in terms of their gender, their age, and their experience, and the type of level they're coaching, whether they be coaching at the professional level, at the college academy, at the youth recs. And I think in breaking down the demographics is definitely important because there's limited research out there. There's more research in the college and the academies and the professional clubs, but there's not that many in the clubs with the youth. And I think that in and having more research in this, I think will help the general population understand, what are the behaviors of those athletes, whether whether they may be rec or whether they may be elite young athletes. And obviously, if the player is underage, then we will send a consent form. That way, parents can sign it, and we can send them their survey for their athlete. I think this is important, and the way we'll do this is, let our cohorts know that they could send it to their athletes, their clubs, and the more data we can have, the better. I think that this study can be done within 4 months tops, and also we can also use our naked eye to look at the different coaching behaviors and how they interact with their athletes. So there are definitely so there are definitely limitations of potential studies out there, and some of the studies that could be done in regards to this research topic is looking at the demographics more in depth of the male and the female coaches and their behaviors. In addition to that, there's also limited study in whether the coaches are coaching in a game type setting or in a practice setting, um, and that can be looked into more in depth. And also, looking at this experience of the coach. Is the coach how long has the coach been coaching? Does he or she have any specific licensing or coaching education? And how can that also affect the athlete's ability to perform at the best? So I think looking into those um, studies in a bit more depth will definitely have more definitely will have more significant and players' performance. So looking at the males and female coaching, and as well as the experience of the coach and the level that they are coaching at, and the type of setting they're coaching at, whether it may be just practice setting, playing